everyone. Hope you're all doing well today, and I'm so excited to be here with amazing panel of speakers. So yes, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself and GlobeUplift. So my name is Arohi. I'm the co-founder of GlobeUplift along with Ishita. We started working on GlobeUplift last summer, and we started on with like this vision to have a platform for individuals to learn and discuss topics of global concern. In the past, we've organized many virtual events such as Learn at GlobeUplift and just Express at GlobeUplift. So we like to discuss and bring together individuals. I believe, and we both believe, that we all have the power to accelerate change, to be change catalysts, which is our kind of this motive. So yes, and I encourage all of you to share your opinions and discuss and just ask questions throughout this event, because yes, we have an amazing panel of speakers. So yes, Ishita, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Arohi. Before we move on to all our collaborators and who have joined us today, I'll just like to explain the outline of our event. So the introduction by all the organizations. So we just introduced about GlobeUplift. So we don't have EmpowerX. The person who contacted you guys, Siddharth, he was not well today, so he won't be able to join us. But then we collaborated with EmpowerX and HobNob Project. So first, the HobNob project will be explaining us their aims and what they have done. Then we can have an introduction by both of you, because we know a bit about you based on your Instagram profile, what you have sent us. So we want to know how you would describe yourself, and we would like to hear more from you. The next will be our panelist introduction, which will be followed by our questions for you. And we're aware that you're quite tight on schedule, so we'll be like finishing up in 45 minutes time. So the HobNob project, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Ishita, for explaining the entire, flow of events. Hi, Kate. Hi, Victoria. My name is Shivan Suri, and I am the co-founder of the HobNob project. What HobNob basically does is we connect the Gen Z to the Gen Z. We mentor the Gen Z in order to, help them achieve their goals in their future. HobNob was started by my friend Arush and me roughly around 8 months back. And the main objective was, again, to bring change. Like Ishita said, we are catalysts of change. And that's what we also wanted to do. We wanted to inspire the Gen Z in a way that they understand that it's all right to, reach your goals and, achieve them whenever possible. We've had over 8 sessions with different mentors like entrepreneurs, national level football players, automobile engineers, and so many different kind of people. And we've had a very strong social media presence in the past 8 months as well. We've impacted a lot of Gen Z members already, and we've got testimonials proving that they have actually found their direction and they wanted to do this in their life. Arush, over to you if you want to say a few things.
Yeah. Hi, guys. My name is Arush Vanot, and I am again the co-founder of the HobNob project. And our basic aim with HobNob was to just, create an environment to help people learn from experiences of other people, because I think that's the most important thing. You learn a lot in academics and a lot of other things, but I think when you learn from experiences, it goes a long way in shaping your personality and, how you approach things. So that was our vision with HobNob, and I think we've kind of done that. And like Shivan said, the testimonials that we get just help us, like we just keep going because of that, and people just keep telling us what they want to see, and we just give it to them. So that's what we've been doing up till now. But yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, both of you. So as we'll be recording this event, please don't worry. The recording will be made into good IGTV and like a small like post for our Instagrams. So we have a very few people joining us today because it's quite late in the US where most of our audience is. So let's get started with your introduction, Kate and Victoria. So if Kate can get us started.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. So my name is Kate. I'm 19 and I'm a sustainability advocate from Singapore. So in my local community, I co-founded a ground-up initiative called Bring Your Own Bottle Singapore, and that is to advocate against single-use plastics. And then on a broader scale, I'm also the co-founder of the Earth Initiative. So what we do is try and advocate for climate justice, and it's an entirely youth-led international organization. So yeah, passing the time on to Vic.
Thank you. Victoria?
Well, Kate, that was very concise. I cannot promise to be as concise as Kate, but I am a Yale graduate, meaning that I've just recently graduated, and I've done many things throughout the years. I think the two most relevant would be co-founding Green, which is a sustainability ground-up organization on campus back at Yale, where we really just identified sustainability issues around campus and we tried to resolve them, but through long-term systemic change. So instead of just, introducing an initiative, we try to implement the initiative into and make sure that the Office of Sustainability is implementing the project throughout the entire of Yale. And the second organization that I co-founded was ECO, which is the Environmental Education Organization. We essentially brought environmental curriculum to students in the Greater New Haven community. And we tried our best to target communities of color where there are, less access to environmental education. Later on, we also included more curriculum topics on environmental justice and things like that. I would say now my activism approach has definitely evolved a lot because I'm a little bit jaded, which I can talk about later. And now I think my focus is more on thinking about the broader, about the connections between environmental issues and broader social issues. And I'm trying to figure out ways in which I can carry out my activism that way. Thanks.
Wow, wonderful. It's so inspiring to hear both of you, what you've initiated, and it's really motivating for us youth. And you both, being so young, have been accomplishing so many wonderful things throughout the years. It's amazing to know. So we would like to start with the questions that we have specifically created for you, so we can know specific things pertaining to your work. So if HobNob would like to start with their questions first.
Definitely. Just give me a second, Ishita.
Sure. In the meantime, if Arohi, you want to get started, feel free.
Yes, so I have questions for both Kate and Victoria, and thank you so much for introducing yourselves. You guys are just inspirations to all of us. So yes, my first question would be to Kate. So yes, you talked about Bring Your Own Bottle Singapore, and since 2018, I know that you've reached out to about 10,000 people. And also your efforts to bring concrete change through the Re-Earth initiative have inspired many. So what do you say to those who want to get involved like you, who want to be in the front line for change?
I would say I have two main pieces of advice. So I think sometimes people think to be able to drive change, you have to start your own campaign or organization. And I don't think that's true at all. There are already so many existing ones, and you could volunteer with them. You could find an NGO in your local community. If you're good at art, writing, music, these are different ways you can contribute. So I think what I'm trying to say is that there's no one right way to be an advocate or an activist. So explore different ways so that you can tap on your strengths to contribute that. So that's my first piece of advice. And I think secondly is really just going for it. And that sounds very straightforward, but it's so much more difficult in real life. Personally, before I started Bring Your Own Bottle back in 2018, I had so many doubts about whether I was knowledgeable enough, whether I was too young, because I wanted to work with businesses and I didn't know if they would be willing to work with a 17-year-old. I'm also a really huge introvert. So if any of you have ever taken the 16 personalities test, the MBTI, I'm a 98% introvert on that scale. So being an advocate is really a big step out of my comfort zone. But I think if you have the interest and the passion for it, then you'll learn to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely, I agree. Thank you so much. And for Victoria, I have the question that you have previously mentioned online that the driving force behind your environmental work is your ability to find gaps in sustainability. So how do you address these gaps, and also how do you bring your solutions to life?
Right, that's a great question. I think just piggybacking off of what Kate said, I wanted to build upon something she said. One thing that she mentioned was that there are many ways to solve issues, and I think in response to your question, I think that a lot of my solutions came about because I identified the gap. And what I wanted to say here before I answer your question is that we shouldn't try and be creating initiatives or campaigns just for the sake of it, just for chasing the need for accomplishment or chasing the need to be a change maker, but there should actually be a gap. And I think when it comes to that, I think it really comes down to knowing the ground. In many ways, it comes down to actually getting involved, like what Kate was saying, getting involved in existing initiatives, speaking to people, networking, or really just building relationships. And I think that is kind of what I did for both Green and Eco. They were both very organically formed. I didn't go into Yale intending to create clubs. It was just, first of all, for Green, I think it was noticing a way that I felt like I could contribute, noticing problems and solutions in my head that I knew how to fix, but they just didn't exist. And so then I basically just went around, spoke to people, and figured out people who were on my team who had the same vision, and we just cobbled together a club. That's how Green was formed. For Eco, I was never involved in environmental education in my life. Like I've never taught, I've never tutored students. And so education was really way out of my comfort zone as well. But I think it was because I was involved in other environmental initiatives on campus that I heard from people who were teaching environmental curriculum beyond, like in other clubs that were not explicitly environmental, that I realized it made sense to just bring all these people together into one club that focused purely on environmental education. So I don't know if this answers your question, but like I think it's knowing the ground. It's like what Kate said, being bold and unafraid. And also thirdly, I think relying on your network, like being unafraid to tap upon your skills, but also outsource the skills that you know other people are better at. So I did all the coordination for and all like creating, like all the administrative work behind creating a club for Eco, because it was my second club that I co-founded. But I was like, you guys are the experts for tutoring, for being the teachers. So you guys can be in charge of creating the curriculum, of, you know, doing up the training for future teachers. You know, I deferred, and I deferred to people who knew more than me. And I think it's important to realize that when you're creating a ground up initiative, you really need to be working with other people of different skills. It's really a teamwork effort. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. That absolutely answered my question. And yeah, like both of you said, it's kind of going out of your comfort zone and trying out like a variety of ways. So thank you so much. And Ishita, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was like really concise and up to the point, and it's like really evident through the way even you both speak, which says a lot about how grounded you are, how down to earth you are, despite accomplishing so many things. And like the ideas that you've put forward are really novel, like bring your bottle SG. That is something so simple and easy that can be easy to implement. So it shows a lot that how much you've thought about practicality as well, because I know like being in this field for just only like 9 to 10 months, it's really hard to get people to change, because change is like really hard. And making a small change, I think you've proved that it's so easy to like drive big change in the future. Thank you so much, Victoria and Kate. We'll be moving on to HobNob if you guys are ready.
Definitely. My question would be to Victoria. You know, founding your company comes with a lot of, founding an organization, as we say, comes with a lot of challenges. And, you know, being the first one to, you know, found Green at Yale, as per I'm like reading your LinkedIn profile right now, and it's so impressive. Honestly, what was that like? What was that experience like, you know, founding the first sustainability action group at Yale? Because firstly, it's such a prestigious university. Taking a stand for that, firstly, it takes a lot of courage. And what was the experience about these, you know, these one second. I think you had ground up environmental projects as well. If you could talk a little about that, because I was really intrigued by that.
Right, sure. I mean, first of all, let me just say, I don't think you guys give yourselves enough credit. I mean, you guys are also co-founders, so I'm sure you guys have a sense of how it is, especially given it's COVID times. I'm sure that you guys have to deal with a lot more challenges along the way. But to respond to your question, I would say I never really saw it as like this grand thing that I wanted to start. As I said, it was something that kind of fell into my lap because I saw the opportunity there and there was no one else taking it. And I was like, you know what? I think there's change to be made here. And if I can be the one who spearhead it, I will do that. And I didn't really see it as, I mean, obviously I had a long-term vision, but I think what I do when I co-found anything new is I really sit down and I think about it step by step. And so I think when it started out, I was really just, okay, let's start out by putting up a poster. Let's see how many people respond to that. Let me start out by reaching out to all my networks, by speaking to people, by seeing, through informal networks, how many people can get on board. And then, yes, okay, we get 5 people together. That's more than enough to get started on one project. And then as we get started, moving through the project, as we go through more and more challenges and overcoming them, and as we gain traction in things that we do, then we start thinking, okay, what is the long-term plan for this? And obviously, I think from the beginning, I always had a long-term plan. I think I have a tendency to I'm a big dreamer. I think when I have an idea, I will think about the furthest iteration that it can possibly take and it can reach. I'm always communicating that to my teammates right from the beginning, because I think it's important to have a vision that everyone strives towards. But I'm also very practical in that we work step by step. We overcome the challenges as we face them. And so I think that I don't know if that answers the question, but like I didn't really see it as this big difficult thing to do, because I really just broke down everything into steps, which were very, very achievable. It was like, after getting a team together, it was like reaching out to XYZ person for our first project, spoke to them, and then got more contacts from those people, and then we moved on from there. So I think it was a very step-by-step process. And I'm sure Kate will say the same thing. You make a plan and then you start small and it snowballs from there.
Definitely, Victoria, that answers the question perfectly, in fact. Thank you so much for answering the question. Arush, over to you.
Yeah, so like Victoria answered the question so nicely, and I just think everything that we start has a basic idea at the start when we think about it. And like Victoria, I'm also a very big dreamer. I also think about the farthest situation that maybe HobNob can go to, or the other projects can go to. And yeah, basically just networking helps a lot, because with HobNob also, when we first started, we had a very basic idea of what we have right now. Just when we start talking to more people, seeing the reaction of people, just like she said, of putting a post and seeing the reaction, just helps you mold that idea into a better concrete idea, and then maybe implement that. So I think that's very inspiring, and I really like that. I had a question about renewable resources, and I was reading about in some article that the renewable resources that we have right now cover a very little part or a little percentage of the energy that we use right now. And since nuclear power is so expensive, what do you think can be an alternative so that we can just stop using fossil fuels and stop degrading the environment that we're already degrading?
You're asking both of us, me and Kate, or?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'd love to know from both of you.
Sure. Kate, you any thoughts? If not, I'm happy to go after you. I'll go.
I think it's a very tricky one, just because it's so different in every country. Singapore is a really, really small island, so nuclear has been out of the options for us from the start. So I would say, if you're asking on a large scale, I think renewables are growing very quickly. Even a lot of the oil majors are already pivoting. In terms of what we can do though, as youth, how we can help to push that transition forward, I think writing to your local politicians is one very simple way. I've always believed in leveraging on whatever power you have, whether it's as a consumer or as a citizen. I'm too young to vote in Singapore still, But what I can do is to still let my politician know this is what I care about. And then they can bring my questions or my concerns forward to Parliament. Another way is to volunteer with a local political party, which is what I do as well. And that's a more direct way of bringing your concerns across. But then again, I know that's not an easily accessible option to everybody in other countries. So that's why I say it's really dependent on your local context. I think also just to be mindful that renewable energy may sometimes still be more expensive. And so it really depends on your position as well. If you're able to comfortably financially afford it, then try and switch to renewable electricity where you're from. But just be mindful that there are communities out there who can't do the same.
Yeah, I really have nothing to add. I think Kate really summarized that really well. I think energy and renewable energy and the reliance on fossil fuels is really a whole can of worms that would be an entire separate segment, like a webinar in and of itself. And I'm definitely not an expert in this field. What limited I can share about it is, well, first of all, what Kate said, every country is very radically different. And so I don't think we are able, even like an expert in renewable energy, unless they are very well traveled, would be able to answer this question in complete certainty, given that we're all from different countries. But I would say one of the considerations that I encourage people to think about when researching this topic is about energy democracy and environmental justice. A lot of the times fossil fuels, factories, things like that, the workers who work in these industries are usually from less privileged backgrounds. Fossil fuel plants themselves are also usually found in communities of color, communities that are more marginalized and disadvantaged. And so I think in thinking about the transition to a greener economy, we also need to be thinking about how it's vital not only for our climate that we transition over, but also for the well-being of, I guess, those who are most marginalized in the world. That's not really answering your question, Harush, but I think that's something that sometimes we forget to think about, and we need to also highlight in the policy conversation around the transition towards renewable energy.
Yeah, I think that answers the question. I got disconnected in the middle, but yeah, definitely. I'd love to know your thoughts about this, and it's just great. So I'm actually very inspired by the both of you, and I was reading your profiles last night, and it's just very inspiring to keep meeting people. Just like I definitely love the job that we're doing right now. Like me, Shivin, Nishita, and Arohi. It's just that we get to meet so many people who are so inspiring and motivating almost every day. It's just having conversations with people like you, just helps us, improve ourselves also every day, and just maybe learn something new today, learn a new skill, know something about, a new topic. And that just personally helping me grow a lot. And I just love this. I just want to say that. But thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Arush. And I also agree with what Kate said about leverage. I think we as a community living in the 21st century, we have a big leverage of our online communities like Instagram, different platforms. And I think through our organization, as Arush said, it's like definitely amazing to be meeting people every single day, talking to them, having conversations with them. I think that's also just helping us, but as organizations, it's also helping us learn more about what you did, how we could improve, and collectively like leading to growth for all of us. So I also had a question from Siddharth, who's not able to make it today, but then he had a specific question for you both about what improvements have you seen in recent years regarding like environmental sustainability? Like we spoke a lot about renewable energy and everything, but what have you specifically observed? Like especially it would be very much applicable to Victoria, because in the beginning when you went to Yale, what was the situation like? And after you came back, what were like your thoughts? And even Kate, like you were really young when you thought of starting this initiative, like what changes have you seen in people and as well in the community?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to get started. I have to say though, I'm not going to go into any specific like policies or like statistical changes that I've seen over the years. But as you were saying, I'm just going to tap upon like my personal experiences and how I've changed since going abroad to study and specifically studying environmental studies. Just for a very brief context, I went overseas and I was very focused on environmental studies as a environmental issue. I was very much for saving the planet because you know, it's very much like, okay, we should reduce waste, we should protect we should like preserve biodiversity, protect species, things like that. I think going overseas and especially being in America, where you see in a very liberal place like Yale, where you see a lot of things like divestment protests or like, you know, Black Lives Matter protests happening right in front of your eyes on campus. I think it really highlighted to me how intertwined climate change is with other social issues. And this is something that was also very highlighted in all of my classes, because I really took classes that emphasize that. And I know it might not seem like the most sexy or exciting topic to talk about, but I think that this is definitely something that has arisen in the consciousness of people around the world, like since I first entered college. Like, I mean, the whole Black Lives Matter movement, the whole talk about class and race and other segments of our identity that can be like points of privilege or marginalization, and how intertwined they are with our abilities as societies, communities, and individuals to deal with the climate crisis, as well as to like the problems and the solutions and who they are proposed by. I think those things have really come to the forefront in a lot of the conversations that we've been having in my circles, and also I guess in the classes that I've been taking. So that's one thing that I noticed very palpably shift over the years. Yeah, and I think the second thing, which is very related, is kind of like the system that we are working in. I'm sorry, this might be a little bit outside the scope of like change making and activism as an individual, but I think I alluded a little bit to this earlier on about how like I'm a little bit more jaded now, and that's because of the fact that I realized that as an activist, I still exist within a broader system that sometimes makes it difficult for long-term change to really exist perpetually, if that makes sense. Okay, I won't go into too far in depth into this, like all my thoughts. They're all very messy, as you can tell. But I think what I'm trying to say is that I've also come to recognize that systemic change is very, very important. I think individual change and what Kate was saying about leveraging your individual influence is super important too. And we should still do that, right? Because individual change is necessary for systemic change to happen. But I think systemic change is also extremely vital in our fight against climate change. And that is something that we should always remember as activists, is that individual activism is so important, but we should also support all the people who are pushing for larger structural change. And that could mean, as what Kate said, volunteering with a political party, or just working with other social causes beyond the environmental movement, or working with environmental nonprofits that really like highlight the fact that they are trying to push for bigger change than just individual action. Yeah, okay, so that's me.
Amazing points. Kate, would you like to?
Yeah, I think I can share from my experience since founding BYO Bottle Singapore, because when I started, that was back in 2018. And when I approached different F&B businesses, at that time, being a youth was a disadvantage because there was no credibility. They didn't want to work with us. They didn't see the point in BYO. And if I fast forward to like today, it's so different. Now being a youth is a strength because people are starting to listen to youth a lot more. Sometimes they use it for publicity, I guess, but you know, they're still starting to listen more. And when you talk to them about sustainability, they get it instantly. They're like, okay, I know this is happening. It's growing very fast and I want to move towards that area too. So I think that's one really major improvement I've seen, at least in Singapore. And even now, like our government, they are a lot more open to hearing people's opinions, I think. There's a lot more focus group discussions or even just public consultations with Singaporeans. So there's a lot more openness, which is really great. But like Victoria said, I think there's still a lot of changes that can be made on a systems level that sometimes even as an individual activist is very difficult to push for. And that's why it's so important to really in activism, sometimes it can start to feel like a competition. And I think it's very important to be mindful of that. Knowing that you are part of a larger community and that you're all working towards very similar goals. So there's no need to compete with one another. Really just tap on that power of the community, because that's when your voices and your message gets across a lot stronger, whether it's to the public or to the government. And then I know this is not like, it's not very aligned with your question, but really it's if we want to see like bigger improvements on a structural scale, you need to tap on that power of like mass movement.
Wow, amazing points by both of you. It's wonderful because what you both mentioned is that starting small and thinking about the vision, and as well at the same time understanding what platform are you on and what are you trying to do, because at the end of the day, as you mentioned, Kate, we're all just trying to bring change, and community and people who are supporting us are just catalysts. There's no point really in competing. And yeah, I have observed there's a bit of like toxic competition amongst like activists on Instagram especially. But I liked what you said. And also about Victoria, as you mentioned about the intertwined issues, it was a really good point, because anything we start with within environment as well, everything, all the issues are like completely linked to each other. So I had a question for both of you. What specific, if you had to choose one like specific aspect of sustainability and like environmental issues, I know it's a hard question, but what would be like the first thing you would want to see a change in, like pollution, plastic consumption, waste management? What is the one thing you really want to see a change in? Each of you.
Do you want me to go first, babe? Okay, I think this isn't specific, but I think it's really just about climate justice, or rather putting people at the forefront of our solutions. Because I think in activism, it's very easy to throw around all these big terms like justice and carbon tax, plastic bag charge, things like that. But at the end of the day, I think we're all trying to support communities who need to be uplifted, whether it's BIPOC communities or lower income communities. And so I think just really putting people at the center of sustainability is what I want to see more. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was exactly what I was thinking, but you managed to summarize it in 2 words. So I would say climate justice, but I also like to add on to what Kay was saying. I would also say that I think one thing that enables climate justice to happen is almost autonomy given to communities, decentralization of decision making and things like that, because justice looks so different in every community. And I think I took a class recently, I promise it's related, but I took a class this past semester called Ecotopian Visions. And one of the things that we talked about in that class is ecotopia or utopia is not a blueprint, because we all have different ideas of what utopia looks like, depending on our specific context of our community. And in order to do that, in order to get there, we need to create institutions that allow us to deal with conflict well, to communicate better, and to practice more communal decision making. And I think that exists in many pockets around the world, but we need to think about how we can do that better in our existing world. Very difficult propositions, but I think these are things that, I mean, you said one thing, right? So I think that could change a lot.
Wow, thank you so much. It's so nice to see how both of your views are really like linked to each other, and it's just wonderful. And I'm sorry, it's quite like we have to wrap it up in like such a short span, but we also need to keep in mind that you both have like things ahead as well. So I just wanted to thank you both for all your time and everyone in the panel who participated and asked questions. It was very insightful, very informative. And for our audience, I'm sure you guys have a few questions. So please don't feel free to DM us, DM them. Kate, Victoria, we'll send you the Instagram links. As well, please don't hesitate to contact the HobNob Project, EmpowerX, and the GlobeUplift, of course. And we would love to organize something in the future with more speakers and more panelists, so we can again have these views, what you think, what I think. And it's just nice to think how you both having different backgrounds and variety of learning. Victoria learned at studied at Yale, the experience she has gained from there, while Kate being such a young activist, and now she'll be going to college soon this fall, I'm presuming. So it's nice to know how, despite having diverse passions, everything links together at the end of the day. So I think, thank you so much, and we loved the session. And I think, yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you so much for conducting this session. And Kate and Victoria, thank you so much for giving us your valuable time. The HobNob Project, I mean, if you want to do something with both our organizations later too, we can do something like an Instagram live as well. There's so many possibilities. But yes, you've been really, you both are so knowledgeable, especially Kate at such a young age, you know so much. And Victoria, of course, with the experience of Yale and, founding your own organization there and making such a difference. You've provided us with very valuable insight. Thank you so much yet again. Nothing more to add to what Ishita said, and that's about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.